In Raids 3 we have Invocations that lets you add anything from a little to a lot of difficulty towards the raid. The way they're written, some of the invocations are difficult to understand exactly what they mean, especially when you're first starting out. So in this guide I will show you visually exactly what each invocation does and the pros and cons of using it. Then you can decide on your own what you want to add, because it's going to be different for every single person, whether you're solo compared to in a team, or if you want an easy run compared to a fast run. The first batch of invocations are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go through them anyway because there are a few things in them that you may not know. Try Again, Softcore Run, Persistence and Hardcore give you 10, 5, 3 or 1 life respectively. And you only lose a life when your entire team wipes in a group raid, or anytime you die when you're a solo. If you lose all of your lives, you are kicked out of the raid and will have to pay 500k to get your gear back, presuming you have a decent amount of risk. Walk for it, jog for it, run for it and sprint for it all add a time limit to your raid. If you fail to complete the raid in this time, you will still be able to finish it, but you will instead be deducted the same amount of points from your invocation total instead of it adding them on. Need some help, need less help and no help needed all reduce the amount of items you get from the Helpful Spirit after 2 and 4 boss kills. These are incredibly useful when learning the raid, not just the extra brews and restores, but the Smelling Salts boost your combat levels up to 125, Silk Dressing and the Blessed Crystal Scarab restore a huge amount of health and prayer over time, allowing you to safely concentrate on mechanics and not worry about your health and prayer. Liquid Adrenaline allows you twice as many specs as normal, so you can Dragon Warhammer each boss 4 times, or even Dragon Claw the boss 4 times in the final fight of the Wardens, which is a bit of a DPS race. The Smelling Salts alone let you complete the raid faster, so it's unlikely you want to use no help needed, which gives no items, unless you are going for the absolute maximum amount of points, but as you get more confident in any invocations layout and use less and less food and prayer, you will probably reduce the amount you receive to 33 or 66%. The pathing invocations don't add any new mechanics, they just make certain mechanics more difficult. They are worth a lot of points but affect all 4 of the first floor bosses. Zebac increases the speed of his main attack, as well as reducing the size of the gaps between the waves that move towards you. The speed increase is also seen in the Soften Rage at the end of the encounter. Akkha increases the number of symbols in his Memory Blast. This also makes using the invocation feeling special more difficult, which increases the speed of the Memory Blast. Baba is the least affected by pathing and only increases the speed of the Rockfall. Kephri increases the speed of the main attack, which is the fireball that falls from the sky. At the higher levels this becomes quite quick and can catch you out in the delay when you attack before you move away if you aren't careful. This also stacks with the invocation Aerial Assault, which makes the fireball attack much bigger and hit harder. Pathseeker increases the level from 1 to 2, which is barely noticeable. Pathfinder levels the path up to level 3, which is noticeably more difficult and will require you to be very comfortable with the mechanics before trying, and Pathmaster levels paths up to level 4. Pathing affects every single boss and is one of the harder invocations you can choose, so if you're just starting out it's definitely one to avoid. Quiet Prayers reduce Protection Prayer's effectiveness by 10%, meaning even if you pray correctly the boss will still hit you for 10% of the damage it was going to do. At this level, if you don't make any mistakes on a boss, it won't do enough damage to make you use supplies, as you regain all of your health and prayer after each fight anyway. If you're still learning the raid though and making mistakes, it will mean using more supplies at each boss. Silent prayers work exactly the same way but take 25% of the damage instead of 10%. If you don't have the best gear, this is probably going to mean you use some brews at every boss, but with the best in slot gear it will probably have very little impact apart from the final boss. On a diet is self-explanatory and means you can't eat food during a raid. You can however still use potions such as Sarah brews to heal up. This invocation also stops you from eating the honey locust you get if you die, and from using silk dressings, which someone at Jagex apparently eats. Dehydration stops you being able to use any potions at all in the raid, increasing the difficulty significantly. Kephri's Lively Lava invocation summons more agile scarabs, which are the small ones that run away from you if you try to attack them, that attack you with range. You simply keep protection from range on, and this completely negates the damage from these throughout the whole fight for probably the easiest 10 invocation points that you can get. More Overlords adds one more scarab during the 2 shield recharging phases, which is the part where you get Kephri to no health and she recharges back up to full. These scarabs hit so rarely as long as you target the arcane scarab first in the second charging phase, which is the one that does a charging attack for lots of damage if left. As long as that is done, then this is another pretty easy 10 points. Blowing Mud doubles the damage of the dung special if you get hit, but all you do is pick 2 spots that are at least 2 squares away from the dung to alternate attacks from, and you never take any damage from the special anyway. Medic will cause Kephri to have continuous shield scarab spawns, which are the ones that you normally get when you reduce her health to 0 and recharge her shield back up. All this mechanic does is make the fight last longer. Now if your DPS is very low, it will make the fight last a lot longer, but if it's very high, it will be hardly noticeable at all. Aerial Assault increases the size of the main fireball attack from 1 square to 3. This also stacks with pathing. It is also applied to the final battle against the wardens. During the fight with Kephri, this invocation doesn't make it much more difficult, but during the final phase of the wardens, it does make that fight a lot more difficult. The first invocation for Zebac is not just a head, which gives it access to blood magic. This simply heals it slightly and does a small amount of damage to you. It also occasionally summons a blood spawn, which can spawn either side of Zebac. Arterial Spray is only worth 5 points and just increases the damage of the blood magic from the last invocation to around double. Blood Thinners is 3 points if you are solo or if you're in a team that groups together, but requires the invocation not just a head to be active. Instead of 1 blood spawn there will be 3, but if your whole team simply moves to one of these squares on the opposite side of where it spawns, you can completely ignore them as they run out of health before reaching you. If your team spreads out, each spawn may target a different person. Upset Stomach increases the size of acid pools and jugs only clear 1 space around them instead of 2. This is probably one to avoid if you are soloing, as it makes the stone phase far more challenging and a bad spawn may see you take a ton of damage. But as a team which can cover far more of the area, this is far less likely to happen. Baba has 5 invocations. The first is Mind the Gap, which will kill you instantly if you get pushed over the edge during the boulder phase. It requires you to be very competent in that phase before activating this one. And it doesn't just kill you if the boulder pushes you over the edge, but even from the pushback when the phase starts, if you simply aren't to the side when he jumps away. Gotta Have Faith increases the damage from the sarcophagus the lower your prayer points are. The baboons open these so you can either kill them or move away from the sarcophagus when they are open, as the projectiles tend to land close by. Jungle Japes allow the baboons to occasionally drop a banana peel on the floor. This stuns you for 3 seconds if you stand on it and does 20 to 25 damage, so the stun mechanism during a special attack can stack a lot of damage on you, but they're very easy to see and very easy to avoid. Shaking Things Up increases the size of Baba's Slam from a 5x5 area to a 7x7 area. Also, the closer you are to the centre when this goes off, the more damage it does. So if you don't move quickly enough, this invocation also increases the damage you take. However, moving diagonally means you only have to move 4 squares away on this special instead of 3, and the sudden movement Baba does before this attack means it's pretty easy to see coming. Before the attack, Baba will suddenly face the nearest compass direction, either north, northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, west or northwest. Boulder Dash will increase the speed of the boulder and spawn time, although it only speeds them up slightly. This is definitely not an invocation to turn on until you're very comfortable during this phase. Akkha's invocations are generally the most difficult of the first 4 bosses. The first one, Double Trouble, will make him do 2 special attacks at once. In solo, Detonate is disabled, so this will always be Memory Blast and Trailing Orbs at the same time. All this will effectively do is put orbs behind you when you're doing the memory phase, and you just have to make sure not to double back on yourself and stand on any of the orbs or they will do a large amount of damage. In a group, one of these specials can be replaced with Detonate instead, which does damage to anyone in a straight line from a marked player. Keep Back makes his range and magic attacks also do melee damage to those next to him, meaning you have to kite around the room or he will do damage to you. This mechanism is much easier in a group where one person can tank or kite him around the room and everyone else can do damage. In a solo, it's much more of a pain, especially when he can only take damage in 1 quarter. Stay Vigilant means Akkha switches attack styles more frequently. He still plays on each style for a decent amount of time, but doesn't change at set intervals or in rotation anymore. Probably one to avoid early on unless you PK a lot and are used to lots of switches. Feeling Special does a few different things. Akkha's Detonate special attack will now also hit anyone diagonally from the person targeted. His Trailing Orb special attack will spawn more orbs behind the player that has it. And by far the worst part is the increased speed of the memory phase. This takes some getting used to and there are a lot easier invocations to add for 15 points. The Warden's invocations scale up really quickly. The first one, which is Ancient Haste, charges the obelisk faster in phase 1 at the start of the fight. This simply results in a bit more damage from the Warden's attacks whilst you take down the pillar. Acceleration does the same thing for the second phase after the obelisk is destroyed. The special attacks they do just come a bit more frequently. When Penetration is activated, this also increases the damage of all special attacks in phase 2. Every invocation after this increases the speed of the attacks in the fight. Overclocked increases it in phase 3, the final phase, and Overclocked 2 increases it in phase 2. You then have Insanity, which it rightly says not for the faint-hearted, and this is it here with all of the invocations on. That's all of the invocations. I hope they helped you out. I know when I started range 3, I didn't know what the hell most of them were doing, and I just kind of winged it, so hopefully this will make it a little bit easier when selecting.